Picking up some of the themes from the first session this morning around, I think some of the questions that were starting to be asked then was about how is this going to be delivered? What are the projects? What technologies are we going to use? And really these are some of the issues that we're all facing at the moment as a city region and for a part of a wider economy. I have the dubious privilege, no actually generally it is a privilege, to be responsible for this part of Steve Rotherham's agenda. In nice simple terms, if you put your one-liners out, it's to be green, and that section about being net zero carbon by 2040. My job is to turn that into a reality. It's a huge challenge, but it's one I think, we were all genuinely excited about, but also we think it's absolutely possible. Using the technology we have today, there are some bits where it's not entirely clear exactly how the world's going to look like by 2040, but I think it's always really important with this is to look back. So even just 2 years ago, hydrogen trains were still in very much conceptual areas. The idea of areas starting to deploy large-scale hydrogen fleets was still conceptual. HyNet was still conceptual. That's only 2 years ago. The fact that just how fast this agenda is moving forward, and again, some of us have been in rooms when we could have all fitted in virtually a telephone box when we discussed hydrogen, and it was still a very small amount of believers. The amount of people that are here today and the kind of work that's here is testament to just how far that agenda's moved on. Why is it important to us? Again, these are the kind of things that Steve mentioned this morning. It's building on tradition, it's building on our geography, it's building on our industrial expertise, and harnessing that to the future. And I think an important point there at the bottom is around offshore wind. Matthew Wright from Ørsted is here today. If you looked at those same kind of challenges that get put back to you 10 years ago around offshore wind, it's too expensive, too difficult. Who else has done it? Is everybody else doing it yet? No. So, but we took the risk as a country and sectors and city regions. We went along for the ride. We took that gamble and we went for it, and we've all been reaping the rewards, both at city region level, regionally and nationally as well, to build those new technologies and to build that solution, that future. And again, the volume of companies I think is critical to this as well, that are now working in that supply chain and again starting to build across. Similarly, the similar trick for hydrogen. And again, it's this point to which we won't be labouring that this stuff is already here. So we already have these types of facilities, which some of the speakers will pick up now. Again, the companies are starting to actually deliver. And that technology, again, it's moving from, again, not long ago, we'd have had CGIs. We've now got real vehicles in car parks. I hope that all of you have been out to see at the first break, and if not, definitely go and see them at lunch break. And again, those project pipelines are becoming a reality. One thing Steve Rotherham mentioned on Sunday, those of you that might have seen, there was a small celebration in Liverpool for the football. Also, I was one of the 750,000 that were on the streets. But he did make some comment that, and I think he was joking, was that are there any open-top buses that are powered by hydrogen yet? I did point out to him that we hadn't actually tried bringing the bus here yet, and if we found any low bridges, we might have had one earlier than he thought. But it's here, and it's coming through. And that's the kind of lessons that we're learning on this, is around that leadership, that partnership that needs to be developed. Again, not being parochial with this. It's as exciting and interesting to form those relationships with Los Angeles as it is with Leeds. But Leeds to Liverpool to all points in between to London, they're all important because we all have to drive this forward and we all feed off each other with that when it comes to that. And I think what we now want to do is take you through into some of those projects, because for us the two key messages now on this agenda are really around scaling and pace. As Steve mentioned this morning, we're now declaring a climate emergency, as most places are. Now we can all have our own views of how that's going to work. But what it's doing is it's driving that pace of change. So things that we all would have found more difficult to sell internally within our organisations and externally, not that long ago, literally months to very few years ago. And now there's a real push to make this stuff happen. What are you actually going to do? And therefore, how quickly can you do it? And that then creates some tensions at times, because the pace of change is significant across all our sectors, but there still needs to be a level of understanding by everybody of how fast this can be delivered. But it's also then about scaling, because we've done lots and lots of projects, there's lots of pilots being done and one-offs. But if we're really serious about this, both from a carbon point of view and an air quality point of view, which can't be underestimated on this, then we need to translate that into tens, into hundreds, into thousands of vehicles, because that's where we're going to make that difference. If we don't do that, then it doesn't matter whether you want to be net zero carbon by 2040, 30, 25, next week. You have to do this kind of stuff at scale. And that creates challenges both for the vehicle manufacturers of all types of vehicles, but also then for the supply chain, for the producers of hydrogen as well. And really one of the key things from this is about bringing these two elements together. So we have to be in lockstep between the volumes of hydrogen that can be produced and the vehicle manufacturers, and making sure that that equilibrium is met. And that can be tricky at times, because everybody's on slightly different lead times, and some of those can be quite long to put the infrastructure in. But that's really where we're heading with this. We're really excited with it. We've got some great speakers for you now as well. And again, these are people that are actually delivering projects, delivering value, delivering products and services today. And I think that's really where we see great excitement in this.